Welcome to the Death by Disney podcast. I'm your host, Adam, and on this podcast, I review Disney movies because I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to watch absolutely every Disney movie that has ever been produced. And that includes ones that you've heard about, like this one, and it includes many that you haven't heard of, or many that you didn't know were actually Disney films. So there's two rules to this mission. I just explained the first one. The first one is that I have to watch all of the Disney movies that I can. And the second rule is that I have to produce these episodes chronologically so I can watch them in any order I want to, but the episodes must be released chronologically. So last week we had The Reluctant Dragon, which was released before this one, which is Dumbo. So that sound means it's time to tell you the plot of the film. So I can't imagine that there is anyone who is listening to this who doesn't know the plot of the movie Dumbo, but if you don't know, there's a circus and a mama elephant gives birth to a baby elephant, and very soon it's discovered that the baby elephant has these gigantic ears, and the the elephant's name was actually Jumbo, but they renamed it Dumbo because they were mocking it. Interesting fact, I don't know if it's an interesting fact, but near where I grew up in a town called St. Thomas, there is actually a huge statue of an elephant, and you can see it when you drive by on the road, or at least you were able to when I was growing up. Anyway, this elephant statue is there because I don't know, maybe 75 years ago, 100 years ago, something like that, an elephant escaped from a train, a circus elephant escaped from a train, and went on a rampage and killed a bunch of people. And so the elephant was killed, and they put up this statue as kind of like, sorry, buddy, for imprisoning you in the circus and murdering you, but hey, here's a statue. Okay, that sound means it's time for some trivia. I think trivia is kind of a interesting way to learn about a movie. So the Internet Movie Database is a very good resource for this kind of trivia, and I just picked the ones that are interesting for me or give me something to talk about later. So the first one, Dumbo is the first and only protagonist in a Disney animated feature to have no spoken dialogue. Kind of interesting, like you don't really think about that until the movie is finished, but Dumbo never really says anything, even though a lot of characters talk to him. In December 1941, Time magazine planned to have Dumbo on the cover to commemorate its success, but it was dropped due to the unfortunate fact that the United States were attacked by Japan in 1941, so that was kind of a more important event than Dumbo. It was the first Walt Disney animated feature, and still one of the very few to be set in America. I think it's strange how Americans are surprised by that. Like, oh my god, there are only a few Disney films set in America, but America, the United States, is only a small portion of the world and its stories, both geographically and in terms of population. So that's not a surprise for me. A few more. At 64 minutes, this is one of the shortest feature-length Disney animated films. So it's like an hour and 4 minutes. And Mrs. Jumbo, so Dumbo's mother, only speaks once when she says Dumbo's original name, which is Jumbo Jr. Okay, that sound means it's time for me to tell you what I think about the movie. So this is the moment you have been waiting for. My review of Dumbo. I did not like this movie. I did not like the talking train. I did not like the stork in the rain. In other earlier Disney films, the quality of the animation is superb, especially in the backgrounds and the landscapes. In Dumbo, Disney had the idea to significantly reduce his costs so that the film would make more money. And it did make more money, so he was successful in that part. The only part of the movie that I mildly enjoyed was the hallucinogenic pink elephant scenes, because in those you can see that the studio really cared about the quality of the animation. And like with Fantasia earlier or Snow White, they really knew how to do horrifying sequences at the time, which is strange because, they didn't start as a movie theater doing these kind of film production company doing these kinds of animation. They were animating things, short reels for kids in front of longer movies. So it's really it's really surprising how they were able to mature their art. But unfortunately, other aspects of the animation don't hold up too well. They're kind of boring and plain. I think that the movie is generally way too short. It flies through the story. Dumbo discovers he can fly, and the next scene is the end of the movie. And you might be thinking, well, if you didn't like the movie, why would you want it to be longer? But I think movies can be bad, and then when they're short and they don't actually give enough attention to the story, it's also bad. Also, I think the film has numerous aspects about it which are very uncomfortable nowadays. The first is the fact that the story happens in a circus, and the circus animals are depicted as being extremely happy in their lot and proud of what they do. But it's obvious if animals were transported that way back then, they would be suffering immensely. I hope that circuses are more humane nowadays, although I don't think they are. The other disturbing aspect of this movie is the overt racism in it. In earlier Disney films, the racism is there, but it's something you really have to look for if you're not aware of some racist tropes. In this one, it's pretty obvious. There's a group of men who are working and talking about what other people say about them, and they say, the other people, that they drink away their money all day. Well, actually, no, they say, the workers who are working, black workers working in the circus, they say they get paid very little and then they drink their money away. Which, this is a kid's film. Is this supposed to be some kind of social commentary on the dangers of black alcoholism? It's very strange. Then there's a group of crows that are portrayed in a sympathetic light. However, these crows are taken straight out of a minstrel show. In fact, the main crow was called Jimmy Crow in reference to Jim Crow laws, or basically segregation, and he wasn't played by a black actor. The other crows were. So that's kind of weird. I think maybe at the time they thought that this was like a really progressive thing. Like, let's make these black crows and let's make it obvious that they're black, and, let's call one Jimmy Crow so we can, do this. But I think it's kind of a way to say, okay, yeah, we can have these black coded characters, but we can play them in the South and the North. And the North will like interpret it one way, and the South will interpret it in a completely different way, And I think that's kind of ominous, And I think that speaks to the fact that Walt Disney, the man, I don't think that he, I don't, I don't know, because actually it's weird during this project, but I haven't actually done enough research into the character of Walt Disney, so I don't, I know like the rumors about him, like, oh yes, he was a Nazi, but I heard that many times growing up, that Walt Disney was some kind of crypto Nazi. And I don't know if that's true, but what I do know is that he definitely cared about the bottom line. So he would do whatever it took to make a movie financially successful. And if it involved having characters that were ambiguous depending on what side of the Mason Dixon line you were on, he would be completely willing to do that. But now, today, it seems a little bit racist. I mean, not a little bit, it is definitely racist. And when I watched this, I was like, oh my god, that is so racist. But then, later movies I've watched of Disney show you that this is not the most racist that Disney can get. It is racist, definitely. But like I said, it's racist because it's trying to straddle this line between saying, okay, yeah, black people are people, but also they're caricatures from a minstrel show. So yes, I think if you have small children and you want to show them some Disney films, this might not be the best one to do it. Pinocchio is probably a better bet for that. Okay, that's what I thought about Dumbo, but what did other people think about Dumbo? So we're going to go back to the Internet Movie Database and we're going to check the lowest rated review and a much better review. So in The Reluctant Dragon, I believe, I couldn't find a 1-star review. But in this one, I can, but it was basically incoherent. It was Dumbo stop drinking and a bunch of swear words that had been censored. So this is a 2-star review for Dumbo. And the title is For Once the Remake is Better Than the Original, from Studio AT, 14th of August, 2019. Like a lot of people, I watched this film having seen the 2019 remake helmed by Tim Burton, and was surprised to see just how little of the original source material he had used. Some of that, of course, is down to the fact that times have changed, and some of the more un-PC elements that appear here just wouldn't wash in our modern world. Unfortunately, I can't say I found a lot to like here. The animation is lovely, but the plot is slow, especially for a 61-minute film, and it wasn't overly action-packed to hold my attention. I'm not saying the recent remake was perfect, but it did more for me than this. And I haven't seen the remake, and it kind of makes me wonder, should I watch the remakes now after watching the original, or should I just watch, the movies I want to and then come back to the remakes when it's time? And I'll admit, I've never actually seen a Disney live-action remake. I know that's crazy, but I haven't actually seen one because I'm a 45-year-old man and my children are teenagers, almost. So why would I watch them? But I have to for this project, so I think it's just a question of when. But I do agree with that. Like I said before, the movie is short, but it feels really long, which is strange. But okay. So now we have a random 10 out of 10 review, and this is from Ben Cheshire, the 8th of July, 2004. All of the other elephants shun Dumbo for his gigantic ears, and his mother has been locked up for protecting him, so he's all alone in the world, until Timothy Q. Mouse shows up. A beautiful piece of work. At just 60 minutes, it's short and sweet, but it also contains some of Disney's best visual poetry. Dumbo's not saying a single word means his entire character is created through the physical. The entire opening sequence, till the gossipy elephants start talking, plays out without words, and is like the best silent movies, simply beautiful. Mrs. Jumbo rearing up and destroying the big top to protect Dumbo from taunting kids is an incredible scene. Dumbo's mother spends the movie imprisoned in a cage labeled Mad Elephant, and surely one of the most beautiful, heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen plays out when Dumbo and his mother have contact only by touching trunks through the bars of the window of her cell. A beautiful sequence begins. The beautiful song Baby Mine plays as she cradles him in her trunk, and when Dumbo leaves, she can't see him, and she stretches out her trunk as far as she can out to the window to try and reach him, and oh, it's too much. The pink elephants sequence is as close to trippy Disney ever got, and it's brilliant. One of the best, most inventive sequences in animation history. Great song, too. Some terrific songs. Look out for Mr. Stork, Casey Jr., the train song, Pink Elephants, When I See an Elephant Fly, and Baby Mine. 10 out of 10. Timothy Q. Mouse is a great character. The animation is so concise and perfect. Great songs, the message that if you believe you can overcome your handicaps, you will. So inspiring and beautiful, and the movie is so short and sweet, it will forever retain its appeal. Wow. That review is 1,000 times better than the film, honestly. Like, you read that and you're like, wow, that's a really amazing film. I want to watch it, but don't be mistaken. The film is not that good. Also, it kind of reads a little bit like this is the only Disney film that this person has watched, because there are much better animated scenes in other films, and the animation in Pinocchio is a lot better. I would agree with the fact that on paper, the story of Dumbo and his mother would tug more at your heartstrings than the story of Pinocchio, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. It doesn't hold up for me. So that's my review of Dumbo. If you'd like to give a review of this review show, please go to anywhere you can review podcasts. Leave a review. That really helps, they tell me. And please subscribe. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next